Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. I'm honored to have Jess Michaels back with us today. We'll chat with her in just a few moments. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So let's talk about the big things of the week. There was so much that's been happening in the last couple of weeks, but like in this week in particular, what stands out to you guys as the big news event of the week?
There was one gentleman, if we can call him a gentleman, who declined to vote with the rest of Congress in terms of the Epstein file release. I have to say.
Clay Higgins.
Yeah, to me that was just, the fact that it was almost unanimous was... I thought fairly incrable. That really stood out.
That should be one of those...
And there's this one guy. What the fuck?
Well, that should be a moment where you're like, I have these strong feelings, but basically everyone else disagrees with me.
He's a maverick.
Maybe I should...
Mavericky.
I'm a loner, Dottie. A rebel. I agree. It's like, what does he have to gain by being the only one, literally the only person in the House and Senate?
Is that what you want Americans? Is that like when it's wait?
You want to die on that hill?
Tip of my tongue. Wait. What's he known for?
You want to die on that hill?
Maybe he's looking to date Megyn Kelly.
That's a real possibility.
Is he barely legal?
He's a little old.
All right, so let's start with Megyn Kelly. But for those of you who don't know, Megyn Kelly was on her show sometime earlier this week, I believe, and she basically said what Epstein did, it's not that big a deal. He's not really a pedophile because it's not like he raped a 5 or an 8-year-old. He raped a 15-year-old, and it's more like a barely legal fetish.
Yep.
Did I get that right?
You did.
Well,
What the fuck? Talk about dying on a hill.
Well, not to be outdone, Alan Dershowitz piled on that. And he, of course, said almost the same thing and had to actually spell out in the number of months the person's age that Epstein was indicted for. Because, whenever you're using months, that's always a good sign that you're way old enough to have sex.
Those two they would make a great match.
Do you, really, I wonder why Martha's Vineyard even allows him back there. I know he complains about it all the time.
Wait. So what did Dershowitz do? Was he like, it's not that bad when you have sex with a 180-month-old?
Apparently, yes, pretty close. He used years and months, but if you have to add months onto the years, there's something a little bit off.
Look, I've had some trauma in my life, and what has saved me from trauma is a sense of humor. So I look at everything through the lens of comedy. But in all seriousness, what got into Megyn Kelly? What can you possibly gain by saying Jeffrey Epstein isn't really a pedophile in like the traditional pedophile sense because he didn't rape a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old? And there's a difference. No, there's not a difference. There's not a difference. A 15-year-old is a child. They're not fully formed physically or mentally. They're children. And if you have sex with them, you're raping a child. I think she jumped the proverbial shark here.
Definitely.
Big time.
Desperately trying to be relevant.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, there's a lot of people who believe that the MAGA fever is breaking a little, and there's this fissure in the movement, and there's like two camps now. There's like the Jew-hating, pedophile-excusing camp, and then there's...
Sign me up for that one.
I think you need to explain that you're joking, so we don't get hate mail. And so it's interesting to see which side people are choosing to be on. You're either on the side of right and wrong and holding pedophiles accountable and condemning anti-Semites and Nazis, or you're in the other group. And I'll tell you, the other group is not a good place to be.
But there's a piece of his base that just make excuses for everything. You heard Nancy Mace say that he wanted all this information out there because he cares so much about the victims.
Oh, of course. Yes, Donald Trump. We had a bill passed in Congress because Donald Trump forced Congress to deal with this situation, this Epstein situation, because all he had to do was literally pick up a phone and say to Pam Bondi, release the files, and do it this afternoon. Just send a dump to the press. And that's why it took an act of Congress. And then we still have to see where it's going to go, because there's all kinds of legal wranglings and positioning and posturing and all kinds of things.
Can we just assume that they're not going to dump all these files in the next 30 days?
I don't know. I mean, it is a
Yes.
law. It is now a law. It is a law.
Donald Trump has never disobeyed the law before. You're absolutely right.
Or evaded. We
Or
don't say
evaded.
disobey. That's sort of strong.
Okay, but there will be hefty prices to pay if they don't follow through and obey the law. I mean, you're talking about the Department of Justice. It cannot disobey. I'm not saying it won't. I'm saying it cannot without a cost. You cannot go to MAGA and say, oh, sure, after promising for years, after not doing it from the White House, after Congress ordering us to do it, we're still not going to do it. Like, okay, you saw what happened on November 4th, right?
Well, it's not like they deport someone to a country they never lived in when the judge said they shouldn't do it.
No, I'm just saying that if we want to get rid of Trump and Republicans sooner than later, let them keep doing this kind of shit, because November 4th, it didn't work out very well for them to not deliver on the promises, you know? And so, yeah, Donald Trump controls the Department of Justice. Bondi is in his pocket. He says jump, she says how high. He says don't release, she won't release. They'll find a way not to release. But I think it's bigger than them right now. I think this is a train that's moving. It's moving fast, and they can slow it down. They can't stop it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's probably tens of thousands of documents, and they're probably going to release thousands of documents that are fairly innocuous to begin with, that don't indicate Trump in any way, because not every single thing Epstein did had Trump's name on it.
Yeah, look, I'm a simple man, you guys. You know that, right?
Yep.
I'm not a very complicated man. So to me, when someone fights like an animal to keep something secret, there's a reason for that, especially after he promised he wouldn't keep it secret and he'd make it public. So when your name is mentioned 1,000 times in the emails that were dumped last week by the House Oversight Committee, and there's photos of you all over the place with Epstein on, just go online and Google Trump Epstein, you see a million photos over the years. Like, there's got to be something in there that is the motivator for him fighting like an animal to keep these things private. But the lesson should be learned that, yeah, I could do nothing to get those files out. Oh, there's going to be a mass public movement, which eventually leads to a unprecedented, historic, bipartisan bill passed in Congress. Like, that should tell him that, dude, the train has left the station. You can slow it, but you can't stop it. And I think that's why he's panicking. I think that's why he's freaking out. I think that's why he's lashing out at reporters. This particular week, maybe make an extra special effort to be nice to women, right? A week of all weeks, like maybe this is not the week.
Why
I
would
should
that
call
be?
women pigs?
Oh, right. I forgot about that. It was a very long, complicated week of news.
All right, Donald, look, we're your advisors, and it's been a bad week. And all this Epstein stuff, the questions about you, where this is headed, who's guilty, who's not. Just go out there and just be really nice to women, especially the women reporters. Just be really accommodating, respectful.
Quiet, piggy.
Right? So I sit here and I go, watch what this dude does in public. Mm-hmm. How about when he's in a hotel room back in the day with a woman alone? And she says no. How many times has he said quiet, piggy, when someone said no? Right?
Yep.
When you see somebody in public and the anger on their face and the vitriolic way they attack someone, especially a woman in public, what do you think they do in private? What do you think they do in private?
Well, his base has seen him do this before the election, and they were perfectly happy with him attacking women.
Yes.
Hey, I could remember back in 15, the campaign, or 16, when women were at the rallies with T-shirts with an arrow pointed down at their vajuices and saying, he can grab mine anytime.
Ew, so gross.
I remember watching that and saying, could he grab your 15-year-old daughter's pussy if he wants? Like, what is wrong with people? He can grab mine anytime? Oh, okay. That's when I knew we were in trouble.
Yeah, Megyn Kelly has a 15-year-old daughter.
Yeah. It's insane. It's insane. And so what else happened this week? By any chance did the president call for the hanging of congresspeople?
Only 6 of them.
Oh. So a bunch of congresspeople in the House and Senate produced this really well done, well produced video where they are urging members of the military to not obey an unlawful order. And this sent Donald Trump off the deep end. Let's play this clip because the message is so important. And mind you, the people in this video, most of them are veterans, and the ones who aren't worked in the intelligence community and in national security.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris Deluzio.
Congresswoman Matty Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
And the intelligence community.
who take risks each day.
To keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
And intelligence community professionals.
against American citizens. Like us. You all swore an oath.
To protect and defend this Constitution.
And right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
But from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
you must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law.
Or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army.
Our Navy,
The Air Force.
Your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
So let's just dissect this for a second. The United States president called for the death of congresspeople because they reminded the military to defend the Constitution and not obey an illegal, unlawful order. But I do believe we are at some kind of an inflection point. I really do. Something changed. There's not the same level of fear in Congress. There's not the same level of fear in the media. We have seen Donald Trump and his administration and his party lose on basically everything. Just the last 2 weeks alone, with the election, with the Epstein scandal and the passage of the bill, the issues coming up in court, the Texas redistricting, the Supreme Court defeat he's probably going to be handed on tariffs, the lower court rulings on National Guard deployment in D.C. yesterday and recently in Portland. He's just losing over and over and over again. And I'm not even talking about his polling, which is just abysmal.
Well, he's at his lowest point in polling in either term of presidency.
Yeah, something just feels different, you know?
I agree. I think it does feel different, but these things can take a turn. The Supreme Court could rule in his favor about the National Guard, and that would be a huge win for him. So things like this can change where the trajectory of how people are feeling about this.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think a lot also has to do with the tariffs, right? That's
Yeah.
in front of this.
That'll be a big loss for him.
Yeah,
but
that's a real litmus test.
it'll probably make the stock market explode because, ironically, nobody wants these tariffs except for him.
Yeah. And another loss that he's probably going to be handed soon is with the James Comey indictment, the case that's sitting with the U.S. Attorney
That is for sure.
Lindsay Halligan in Virginia. All right. Last but not least, backfire in the Texas gerrymandering case. The courts overturned the redistricting there. But here's the fun part. California just passed Prop 50 to give 5 seats back to the Democrats to counter the 5 seats they lost in Texas. So we might actually pick up those 5 seats in California and lose nothing in Texas.
Gavin is looking so
Go, Gavin.
good.
You go, girl. All right, let's get to our winners and losers.
My winner, U.S. Judge Jeffrey Brown, a Trump appointee as part of the 3-judge panel responsible for blocking Texas from using the new congressional gerrymandering in 2026 midterms. My loser, President Trump, for accusing Democrats of sedition, quote unquote, punishable by death, over a message to the military that they are not supposed to obey illegal orders.
My losers, Megyn Kelly and Alan Dershowitz, who managed to somehow defend Jeffrey Epstein. My winner is Putin once again. The 28-point Trump proposal to end the Ukraine war could basically have been written by Putin, and Europe is now freaking out, thankfully.
My winner, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for having the guts, whatever her ultimate motivations are, to basically call Trump a traitor. My loser, Donald Trump, who can't seem to win anything lately. Which gets us to the weekly rant. So Donald Trump can't stop losing. In just the last couple of weeks alone, he's been losing in Congress, at the voting booth, in the media, in the court of law, in the court of public opinion, in the polls with his MAGA base, and even among former fierce loyalists like Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's really starting to feel like the Wicked Witch of D.C. has lost his broom and just might finally be melting. I have to say, this is not a surprise to me. After last year's election, I predicted, and I've been saying ever since, that Trump and his swamp-drained administration would be the gang that can't shoot straight. That this gaggle of grotesque, incompetent, corrupt, self-serving fascist wannabes would be unable to govern. And that's exactly what we're seeing. In fact, Trump 2.0 has become even more inept and chaotic than the original gang. Oh, don't get me wrong. By controlling the White House, the Senate, the House, and for the most part, the U.S. Supreme Court, these fuckers have done some serious damage to America and virtually every one of its norms, boundaries, and institutions. But that requires no special skill, other than having power and a cowardly, abdicating Republican Congress, a submissive court, and the ability to break shit like a bunch of toddlers in a china shop. That said, I believe we are at a critical inflection point right now. With the virtually unanimous passage of the Epstein bill this week, Trump has been told by congressional Republicans to fuck off for the first time since he landed in Washington 10 years ago. This comes after an extremely bruising few weeks, which began with the historic No Kings protests last month. The lower courts have handed Trump major blows on tariffs, National Guard deployment in Portland and D.C., and Texas redistricting. He's also likely soon to be dealt a crushing blow by the Supreme Court over his tariff policy, which will not only strip him of his favorite toy, but make a very clear statement about what the court will or won't allow him to do in terms of shredding the Constitution. He's also likely to be dealt another humiliating legal defeat with the tossing of the James Comey indictment over the illegal appointment of and gross incompetence and suspected prosecutorial misconduct by Virginia U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan. He was trounced in a blue tidal wave earlier this month in a massive rejection of everything he stands for. Voters overwhelmingly blamed him and his party for the shutdown. His approval has sunk to 37%. He's been dumped by Greene, who called him a traitor. And for the first time, MAGA has become highly divided over several issues, including Epstein, Trump's refusal to condemn Tucker Carlson's platforming of white nationalist Nick Fuentes, and his anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, sexist hate speak, Trump's lies about inflation, his very non-America first policies, and for practically blowing MBS in the Oval Office this week. You know, when you lose Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's a signal that the MAGA fever may finally be breaking on some level. That the base is beginning to realize that Trump is a total fraud who's failed to deliver on his promises, including releasing the full Epstein files, bringing down the cost of groceries, deporting only the criminal undocumented immigrants, and keeping us out of foreign conflicts. Most important, though, is that Greene and congressional Republicans have finally demonstrated that the party can indeed go against Trump. And like the coward he is, he will do nothing. That taco boy ain't got shit. The myth of the strong man's invincibility has been shattered. And that is why I believe we're at a critical inflection point for the first time in 10 years. Because Donald Trump is a wounded animal, and the vultures are circling. He's a bully in the schoolyard who finally got punched in the face, and instead of fighting back, he's whining like a toddler and lashing out at female reporters, Lately, Trump looks and sounds like an angry, defiant, desperate, defeated loser. He seems more incoherent and unhinged than ever, and has been shitposting about everything from Jimmy Kimmel to making death threats to Democrat lawmakers. And now this Epstein shitstorm threatens to eventually bring down his presidency. And he knows it, which is why he's been fighting like an animal to keep those files secret. This is the first time that Trump has been unable to spin, deflect, gaslight, or lie his way out of trouble. This is the first time he has been unable to control the narrative. He's been squarely on defense, which is not a great place to be for a petulant, impulsive, insecure, incompetent, chaotic coward. Which is why I keep saying that, in the end, Donald Trump will not win. That we will win. That democracy will win. All right, let's get to Jess Michaels. She is a 3X founder, TEDx speaker, advocate, and 1991 Jeffrey Epstein survivor who has lived with PTSD for 30 plus years. She is founder and CEO of 3 Joannes Inc. and the hashtag #WithYouToo social safety app, which guides users to, quote, know what to do when someone says hashtag #MeToo. Jess, welcome back into the back room.
Thank you so much for having me back, Andy. You've been along this journey for the last 4 months. I think you were one of my first interviews.
Oh, well, the first thing I want to ask you is, it's been quite a dizzying week, but how are you doing, given what you've just been through this week?
It's been an incredible week. My week started hopping on a train, getting into DC, running through Union Station to make it on time into the swearing in of Representative Alida Grijalva, and being in that room when she signed the dispatch papers, and then doing media with her afterwards. And that high lasted through getting home, then in one day jumping back on a train to get to DC to be ready to do that press conference on Tuesday, and then get a literal act of Congress to have us be heard. And so it's overwhelming, numbing, exhilarating, exhausting. It's literally every spectrum of emotion that you can imagine.
Yeah, and anticipation and apprehension, I'm sure, are so many words we can come up with.
Yes.
What were you thinking as you stood outside the Capitol on an awesome day of reckoning? I won't say the day of reckoning because, as we both know, there's so much uncertainty ahead, but definitely a welcome day of reckoning nonetheless. But what went through your mind as you stood there with so many other survivors, with Reps Ro Khanna, Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, as the Epstein bill was headed for passage?
What was on my mind when we were sitting in the House just waiting for the vote. So first of all, I want to tell you how the vote went, because that was fascinating. Initially, they were just going to do a verbal vote. And then someone requested, no, we need to do an electronic vote for this to go down very clearly who voted for what. And so that requires 15 minutes. And there's a board in the gallery that is up above everyone, and all the names of all the representatives are up there. So through a 15-minute period, we're just sitting and watching as every single name puts in a vote. The suspense was crazy. So it was incredibly exciting to feel in that moment when the vote was concluded and 427 to 1 agreed with survivors and agreed with the American people. So it felt very empowering. And they agreed with us instead of the people that are preying on Americans.
And, when I was watching the press conference, watching the survivors standing there, the nods, the tears, what shines through is such a sense of camaraderie and sisterhood and determination and strength and courage. I mean, when we think about what you guys are doing, the stand you're taking and who you're taking it against and what that involves, it is one of the most courageous things I've ever seen. And so major kudos to you guys, because there's so much. You've had threats, and it comes from the top of, the president of the United States still calls it a hoax. So you're still dealing with so much, yet the thing that makes us feel good when we watch it is that we know you guys are not going to stop. And that has to be a great feeling when you're standing there in front of that institution, that building, knowing that, okay, this is just one notch in the belt. There's more battles ahead. But to feel that there is no one that's going to stop us must be a great feeling.
It is. And one of the tenets of sexual harm in general, whether you're talking about childhood sexual abuse, sexual assault, sex trafficking, is silence and isolation. And so for all of us to come together and break that silence just in our group alone and to develop this sense of trust with the most vulnerable experience in your life, the most traumatizing experience in your life, with people that truly understand, it is unbreakable. It is unstoppable. It is unbreakable. It is unmeasurable. I've never experienced anything like it before, but I trust these humans with my life. And I know that they know they can count on me. And we are well aware that this is only the beginning of the next mountain. We are celebrating today because it was a win. It was an actual, and I just want to let you know, there was a staffer, because we spent the whole day on the Hill Tuesday. It wasn't just for the vote. We were in offices talking to people. We separated into groups of 3 and 4 and just, scoured the whole Hill.
With Congress people and aides and
Exactly. We were in offices all morning long, ran from the press conferences in to just talk to people.
What did you get a sense of from those conversations? Because those are not public. Those are behind closed doors. Do you feel like Congress, I mean, obviously they passed a bill unanimously, but there's still a lot of battles ahead that could involve Congress. Do you still feel like they are truly, firmly committed to seeing this thing through the way it needs to be?
I sat in rooms with Republican representatives that were frustrated as well. And in fact, it was a staffer from one of these Republican representatives' offices that was in tears with us, who said, this should not take an act of Congress. She was the one that said that. And so I believe a lot of Republican representatives are stuck in this situation as well. But we are begging them to advocate for us, and they're saying they will. That's what we're counting on. And then the fact that it went right to the Senate, which I don't think none of us expected that. And to have the Senate unanimously agree right off the bat, no, we're passing it. We thought we had another month and a half, 2 months of okay, we're on the ground, boots on the ground. We're going to spend days down on the Hill advocating to the Senate. But that's not what happened. And so we believe part of it was for the pressure from the American people. And that is also what is fueling us, is Americans are saying we're tired. This should have been done 2 decades ago, and it wasn't. So the response has been, they want to help. They really do. The politicians that are involved here want to help. They want to be part on the right side of history with this.
And so it sailed through Congress, and the Department of Justice now has 30 days to release the files, but Attorney General Pam Bondi was before the press yesterday or the day before.
Dancing around.
And she was pressed about, are we going to see those files? And her answers were pretty sketchy and pretty evasive. So where do you think this is headed? Because, there could be this decision that they make, given that there's an active investigation into Bill Clinton and others, that, we can't release these files now that there's this active investigation. Where does this go? What did you make of when you were listening to Pam Bondi?
I didn't really listen to Pam Bondi.
Good for you. You're much smarter than I am.
I actually had a sliver of hope, by the way, back in February when all of those MAGA influencers came out with binders and they were like, we've got the first phase of releasing these files. I actually had a sliver of hope and I was like, all right, go for it. I'm wishing for the success of this mission. And then it turned into nothing. And none of those influencers have ever responded to the fact that they got nothing. That wasn't to the charade. Not a single one of those influencers responded to that charade ever. So my feeling is we're going to see attempts to blame victims. We're going to get pushback. We're going to see victim blaming. We're going to see incomplete disclosures. We're going to see threats to our physical safety. We are buckling down and know that this is going to happen. We know that there are going to be efforts to pull us apart because one of the amazing survivor sisters that I have right now is Rhiniecliff Chartouni, and she had a phrase that a friend gave her that we are really embracing. It says, "Alone we are afraid, together we are feared." So separating us and getting us to fight against each other, which is kind of a political strategy, I think is going to be used against us. And that's just not going to happen. So,
and what are the next steps if you start to see obfuscation, delay, or just absolute defiance? What measures can be taken to make sure those files are released?
I think it'll be us continuing to do our advocacy and educating the public. We're going to need people like you, an independent journalist, and the media that has listened to our stories the whole last 4 months and really helped us get our stories out there so that people knew what was really happening. We're going to be counting on you guys. We're going to be counting on the American people to stand behind us like they did by calling their representatives on Tuesday. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene said they had such an overwhelming response from the American people, calling Congress.
Wow. Yeah.
Unprecedented amount of Americans calling Congress. So the next steps are we count on the people that have been our allies and the advocates. We'll keep doing what we're doing. We hope you'll keep doing what you're doing. And we educate the American people. This is the funny thing. And I really want to make sure everyone acts like Epstein was so special. Do you know that this playbook of let's get some young girls out there and recruit other girls, it's literally the bottom of the barrel most common sex trafficking ploy. It literally happens in high schools every day. It happens on street corners every day, but because it involves wealthy men and men of influence, that's the only reason that everybody's acting like this is such a unique thing. It's not. Anybody that's been involved as a prosecutor of sex trafficking, Lauren Hirsch, who is the co-founder of World Without Exploitation, she's actually been one of our biggest allies and advocates. And she's like, this is literally the most common. There's nothing unique about what Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell did. Nothing. Zero. It is the sex trafficking 101 playbook. And so I think it's going to be a matter of us educating people to be like, yes, that coercive control, that manipulation of young minds, particularly those young minds under 22, 20, 23, 21, 17, 14, 12, it's particularly used on young, vulnerable, not just vulnerable by innocence, but vulnerable by financial vulnerability, emotional vulnerability, a lack of a support system. It is used in every single sex trafficking ring across the world.
Yeah, well, this one's got mansions and private islands and powerful political people, rich people. It's global. It's got the royal family. I mean, it literally is the stuff that, tabloid dreams are made of.
Exactly.
But because of all that, it is bringing attention to a problem that exists, like you said, on the streets of America every single day,
Every day, and profoundly affects people of color. And that's why we know when we're when we're standing up there. We know that this may be talking about Epstein right now, but what we know is we're actually like poking the bear on an underbelly of oppression and abuse and violence against people of all races, but particularly men and women of color.
You mentioned before that this shouldn't have taken an act of Congress. The reason it needed to take an act of Congress, as you know, is because Donald Trump, who is not bashful, and his little Truth Social fingers tell Pam Bondi what to do all the time, which enemies of his to go after and indict. He never picked up a phone or posted to her to release the files. What did you think when you saw his big 180 last Sunday night, where he told Congress to release the files after every minute of every day prior fighting like an animal to keep these files secret?
Honestly, I didn't really think much of it because I did. Historically, we have no good reason to trust the government. Historically speaking.
And him in particular.
And him in particular. But honestly, it's been across 5 administrations. So until we see some genuine action, we don't trust anybody. I don't care whether they're Republican or Democrat. We don't really trust anyone until we see some action. We saw action from Congress because words don't mean anything. So when we sat in those rooms talking to all of those Republican representatives' offices, if we hadn't seen action, it would have just been, well, there you go. That's what we would have expected. So we saw action from Congress. And we saw action that he signed it, but we haven't seen action in justice. And so I'm not really not paying much attention to Donald Trump. This is so much bigger than Donald Trump. It really is. And that's an important factor, because what we don't want to happen is that everything gets so focused on Donald Trump that people leave out all of the other perpetrators. And the same thing that happened then to Jeffrey Epstein, where everybody just focused on Jeffrey Epstein or just focused on Ghislaine Maxwell. And then the actual sex trafficking ring, the global sex trafficking ring of elites is ignored again.
That's a good point. A few of your survivor sisters have indicated, and Congress people like Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene have agreed that as a nuclear option, so to speak, if this thing were to ultimately go nowhere, that they will go into Congress, in the chamber, and read off the names of the perpetrators. Do you think it's going to have to come to that?
I don't know if it's going to have to come to that or not, but I think what this White House underestimates is the number of copies of the files that are out there, the number of people that have lists. I mean, even Virginia Giuffre's co-author said, Virginia gave me her list. I have it all on tape. We have journalists that have let me know, they're like, I was really close with so-and-so. They told me their list. I mean, we know that there are a lot of people out there that have seen a lot of information. And so what we're expecting is not, again, that we have to be the ones to put ourselves on the line, but that some of our allies are willing to step up and be whistleblowers for us.
Yeah, I understand the dilemma. I mean, there's a lot of people, obviously, you've heard this a million times, like, well, if you guys have the names, just release them. Why won't you release the names?
I keep hearing that all the time. And the reality is we are not getting any kind of safety, physical safety, any kind of protection, any kind of financial security where we're going to be able to fend off any kind of lawsuits. We are receiving none of that. And so if someone wants us to release the files, they might need to step up and take care of all 1,000 of us under the wing financially and for physical safety. And I don't know that anyone is willing to do that.
Do you think, and this is a tough question, not only for you, but it's a hard question for me to ask, but I think it's an obvious question, and that is, do you think the administration, when they hear things like that, go, that's why we're going to win in the end, because fear is a powerful drug, and we got all the power, we have all the money, we have the media, we have it all, and they're not strong enough, or they don't have the security, the protection. I mean, is that a reality that you think about?
I think about it less now, 3 months later, when I've seen Congress act and I've seen the American people act. So the difference is they may have the money, but we have the American people. And that's not nothing. And even though, so let me also tell you the problem with us telling just the survivors that have names, just putting them out there. Mm-hmm. What next? Because the what next is, okay, now we need proof. Well, all of those things, victim statements and the evidence, are all in the files. That's why we're waiting on the files. If we just give names, what happens? What happens next?
Right.
It doesn't do anything except put us in danger. So it's just not a smart strategy.
Yeah, it's such a difficult situation because the right thing has to get done if people are going to be held accountable, and there will be justice for you guys. And that involves, a Department of Justice that is not, having some kind of ulterior motives.
And whistleblowers. I'm just gonna say that out there. There are people that have seen those files. There are attorneys that have a lot of information. There are victim statements. According to FOIA, we should be able to get our own victim statements back. We're still waiting on that. I think Maria's been waiting. Maria Farmer, who put her first report in 1996, I think she's been waiting since 2015 to get a copy of her report. And I know that survivors that have called up and put an application, and they said, yeah, we're expecting it to be available by 2027. That's the response that we're getting about even getting our own reports. But there are enough people out there that have seen and read those files. It's not as if this DOJ are the only people that have ever seen those files. There have been 5 administrations that have seen those files. There are plenty of whistleblowers out there. And that's what I'm calling on. We are standing up, we are telling our stories, and we are hopefully garnering support from those whistleblowers to believe in us. And then the American people coming along behind them and being like, we're going to support those whistleblowers. It's going to be about all of us coming together, regardless of party.
And in those files, we're talking like grand jury transcripts, videos, photos, flight logs. There's so much information there that is very likely scaring the shit out of many, many powerful men all over the world.
Yes, there is.
And that's why there's not been a movement to release these files, which is why your struggle is so important. And it was amazing to see Congress come together in a way we haven't seen them do I don't know the last time I ever saw Congress do anything unanimously.
We were talking about it among us with an attorney ally, and who's deep into legislation, and said this has never happened. This is an unprecedented moment, and I've had plenty of people say to me, they're like, "Do you realize you just made history?" And I said, "I can't even feel it yet." And my friend, who's also an attorney, is like, "Okay, give it about a year. When you see, you're gonna actually feel it in about a year. Like it'll hit you." It'll hit you. What we all just did. Because it's been really hard. And it's exhausting. And I think we are so proud of ourselves and so proud of those politicians. We can't thank all of them, both sides of the aisle, for stepping up in a really, really difficult moment. And the American people, like, this is a hard moment. I have family members that are very Republican, and they are struggling right now because their whole identity has shifted. Like this is a very, and I think that what we all need to do is as hard as it sounds, Andy, have some compassion for those Republicans and conservatives in our lives that were Republicans long before Trump ever came around, and that way of life meant something to them. Mm-hmm. And that understanding, and then this party, this person taking over the party in a different it's been hard for them too. And I'm watching them support us and just be absolutely devastated about how betrayed they have been because of how they voted.
Yeah. What you guys are doing, because you're behind it, it's forcing people to look in the mirror and just ask themselves one simple question: am I for or against child rapists? Period.
Yeah.
End of story. And that's not I would imagine that's not an easy place for a lot of people to be. But I think to your point is a lot of Republicans and a lot of conservatives, even people in the MAGA movement. How do you defend this? You can't. This isn't deregulation. This isn't lower taxes. This is child rape.
Yeah. And to your point, we spent a lot of time talking to House Republicans and senators that are very anti-sex trafficking, very anti-child sex trafficking. So I think that's also an underestimation with the administration, that there are people in Congress that are conservatives that have been against this for a very long time. And to ask them to speak out against releasing the files goes against everything they've ever done for their entire lives. And so I think there is finally a break in the mirage, and that's what we're grateful for. And we're hoping that everyone will find the courage to stand up with us and for us in rooms we're not in, and advocate hard for this, because this is, I believe, it has become the moment where we can all make history.
Well, you've already made history, and I'm not even talking about the passage of a bill. What you guys did was to get Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene standing next to each other outside the Capitol, fighting for the same issue. I mean, if you told me that was going to happen a year ago.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, Marjorie Taylor Greene has been fighting for release of the files for a long time. Back in June or July of 2024, I saw that she posted about it, and I supported her in that moment. I agree with nothing else that she supports, but she's fighting for the right thing on this issue. And so I supported her back in June of 2024. I support her now. And I saw something beautiful that happened in the House. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to share it anyway. Representative Melanie Stansbury, who I ended up meeting, but just in the green room, and she was just lovely. And she sat down with me and she's like, maybe I should approach Marjorie Taylor Greene and have a conversation. And I said, that would be great. And I sat up in the mezzanine of the House gallery, and I watched. It was just beautiful as she got up and she literally crossed the aisle and sat down next to Marjorie Taylor Greene and put her arms around her as they both supported the passage of this bill. And it is, all of this is just unprecedented. And I think it could be a chance for the country to come together around something really important.
Yeah, I was going to say that through any movement, there's always symbolism, and there's things that, in a domino effect, help change the direction of the country. And in this particular case, it's mobilized people on both sides of the aisle to come together for a cause that there should be no argument over. This is not a blue or a red issue. It's not a left or right issue. It's a right and wrong issue. And I think you said before, in particular with conservatives, like, if people are truly people of faith, how do you square any of this? How do you not come out forcefully and say, I will vote for it, I will fight for it, I will do whatever. Just tell me what I got to do.
Yeah, we know we're only at the beginning of the next mountain. we're well aware of that. So we're celebrating now because you need to celebrate that hope in order to keep going. And so that's really good. And we're ready. We're ready for the next level.
When you saw this dump of 20,000 documents, 20,000 emails, whatever, what were your major takeaways from stuff that you might have? I'm assuming you read through some of them, but maybe you haven't. You know? I don't. It is already hard enough to see the man that raped me, his face all the time. It's hard enough reading his name all the time. It's hard enough saying it all the time. And I believe that one of the ways now, looking back, how I've protected myself the last couple of years is I didn't go down any Jeffrey Epstein rabbit holes. It took me 2 weeks to get through the Filthy Rich documentary, and I could barely get through it, and I don't even remember it. I cushion myself by letting the people that have the capacity to do that. So I'm asking everyone, do it. Go through those files for us, go through them, start putting together
pieces and dots that maybe you hadn't seen before. I know, like I said, we have third-party attorneys that are out there that are not associated with us or with the administration or with any of the attorneys in the past. They're just saying, we've got teams ready waiting for these dumps. And great, though, that's what we need. So we're asking for support in that way too.
What do you make of, in a week where all this has happened, where there was a congressional bill passed, where the focus is really on the treatment of women, of teenage girls, minors, sex trafficking of minors? In that same week, we see the President of the United States lash out at female reporters. I had two thoughts. My first thought was talk about tone deaf, but there was something else that hit me this week in a way that I never did before. And it's like, when you see this guy lash out at women like that in public, it's not such a stretch to imagine what he's capable of in private.
Yeah.
And then you sort of connect dots and you're like, there's got to be stuff in those files that are not good for Donald Trump. And that explains everything.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of protection happening to the people. I actually love how, I think it was Ro Khanna phrased it, the Epstein class.
Yeah.
This elite group that have all known each other for a very long time. You know, he wished Ghislaine Maxwell well during the trial.
He still won't say he won't pardon her. How does that make you feel? Like,
And so I think that there is a level of misogyny and patriarchy that is trying to fight for its last breath.
Right.
Because if you give women any voice or any genuinely equality or any power, the assumption is women will treat men the way that men have treated them, and that's not necessarily the case. And I think there is such a fear of losing that power of control over women and their bodies. And there's a desperation there.
yeah, completely tone deaf, complete desperation. But I think you hit on the main point, is that he represents a part of the patriarchy that it's like a Hail Mary moment, at least for him. And it shows his anger and his desperation and likely his tremendous fear. I personally think this scandal can bring down his presidency eventually, because I do think, I say this all the time. When you're on the campaign trail and you promise for how many years that you will bring these deep state pedophiles to justice, you'll release the files, you just put us back in power, and then you get all the power and you don't do it, but you claim you're innocent. What would be the reason not to do it? Especially when you're getting such political pushback. The fallout has been tremendous over this. Why would he break from Marjorie Taylor Greene over something he could just easily release? So I think it's an existential threat to him personally.
Yeah. And if it's a hoax, great, release it. If victims aren't telling the truth, awesome, release the files. Let's find out. If there are no other men that are being trafficked, it was only to Jeffrey Epstein, release it.
Right.
I mean, the answer to every single question on every doubter's mind is great.
Yeah.
Release files.
Right.
Just I'm innocent. Release the files. There's no downside, and the downside we keep hearing is like, oh, we want to protect the survivors. We're like, release the damn files, all of us. We've talked to Jane Doe's. We have a phone chain going on that's connected to a lot of survivors across the globe, and they have all said, release the files. There's no one that's saying, whoa, I'm not sure. Because if there was, we would all bind together and we would say that. But no one is saying that.
I think if it's up to him personally, those files will never be released. But thankfully, I think there's a train that has left the station where it may happen sooner than later, whether he likes it or not. So in our last couple of minutes, you had mentioned that you have a statement that you'd like to read.
This is a statement from all of the Epstein survivors. We've all signed this. What we're bracing for. Thanks to brave supporters in Congress and in the public, we have won one victory, passage of the bill to release the Epstein files. But we know the battle is far from over. As we approach the release of the files, here's what we're bracing for. attempts to blame the victims for our own or each other's abuse. Years ago, Epstein got away with abusing us by portraying us as flawed and bad girls. We cannot let his enablers use this tactic to escape accountability now. Some of us were neglected children. Some of us were used to recruit other girls our age. These were tactics Epstein and Maxwell used as they ensnared victims, and they were standard tactics of all sex traffickers, like we talked about earlier. These tactics reflected them, not us. We're going to see incomplete disclosures. Other than redacted victim names, we want all the files disclosed. We ask our champions in Congress and in the public to continue fighting to make sure all materials are released, not selected ones. We're going to see threats to our physical safety. Many of us have already received death threats or other threats of harm. We are bracing for these to escalate. We ask every federal and state law enforcement agency that has jurisdiction over these threats to investigate them and protect us. We're going to see efforts to pull us apart. We are already hearing efforts to suggest that the victims who had reached the age of 18 were not really victims anymore. We denounce this outrageous argument. Some of us were over 18 when we were victimized. Some were vulnerable because of childhood sexual abuse. Some were vulnerable because of poverty. Some of us were assaulted by Epstein and Maxwell and their accomplices using force, intimidation, and violence. All of us were vulnerable because of life circumstances our young selves faced that were manipulated by Epstein and Maxwell and for which we were targeted. A 20 or 22-year-old is no match for a forceful and determined pair of hardened, methodical, middle-aged predators. We reject any claim that once a girl turns 18, she is fair game. Epstein and Maxwell used predator tactics against us. Their methods varied from girl to girl and young woman to young woman, but the common thread is the devastation their abuse left behind in each of us. Those girls and young women are fully adult women now, and we stand together resolutely against any attempt to divide us.
Amen. I have a feeling this is all going to end the way it's supposed to end eventually, but it requires a lot of people like yourself and your survivor sisters to keep demonstrating the kind of courage and agency that is just, it's a really inspiring thing to watch. Thanks for coming on and updating us, and we will continue to support in any way we can. I got a lot of daughters. This is a big issue for me, and I also have a son, and it's an issue for me for that reason too. This is not just a girl issue. This is a male-female issue. And so please do come back soon and update us again on where things stand.
Thank you, Andy.
Alrighty. Take care. This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Matty Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhiniecliff, with additional editing by Matty Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Lengyel. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.